So I'm stuck in the middle of a traffic jam. I've been in this traffic jam for working on an hour and a half, something like that. It took me 3 days to get to California, and I am doing it on the way back in 2 days. So I can have it basically a day off to hang out with Andrea and the Kit Kats and chill out before I get back to work. I've been listening to audiobooks, books about dragons and witches, wizards, all this kind of cool stuff. Stuff that does go on here, but it goes on underneath the surface, even more so than it does in the books. In the books, people who practice magic, they do it relatively covertly, even though there are some who know who they are. Here, it's like, I wouldn't say 100% covertly, but it's more so. Going through the desert. And I do believe that I'm coming up to whatever accident happened up here pretty quickly. I'm all set to get to my Airbnb at midnight, and then drive for another 7 or 8 hours tomorrow, and be back in Colorado. Anyway, back to the idea of witches, warlocks, magicians, fairies, elves, dwarves. Essentially, all of the exciting and dynamic elements that would make up a world that's full of adventure. And when war happens, they're individual battles for the most part. And it's interesting. There's a fluent and fluid storyline that runs through every single altercation / interaction, and it fits in coherently with the whole. So that's more what the upside down is here. It's not so much that it's upside down from what a world would look like if the majority of the citizens were not entrained and enslaved to a system. It wouldn't just be the opposite of that. It would be the opposite of if you had a world full of magicians and witches and warlocks. And regular people. You'd have some muggles in there. But if you flip that upside down, that's what this would be. And that's what this is. This whole system is has a net result of what it looks like when you take a bunch of magical beings with an array of powers and you spiritually dampen their power and help them to forget what they are, who they are. And you don't just do that easily. Requires great amounts of power. And all of the power that operates in this system is unseen. Magic still definitely occurs. And also, if you compare and contrast with, according to the books and the literature, how it used to be, it's still, even in our written history, has been about what you read in the books, which is book burnings, witch burnings, and trying to demonize anybody who practices magic. And when I say magic, I don't mean magic. I mean someone who's able to express power and the ability to influence the environment and other people. That's what the system wishes to subdue. And it has done a very good job for the most part. If you look at the world in general, it looks like a bunch of muggles that have been corralled into an even tighter corner than they would be roaming if they hadn't been corralled. So it looks almost like an unnecessary amount of power wielding. But the previously and current, in many situations, magicians have been made to look like almost like they're disappeared, almost like they've gone extinct. And the predominant and prevailing output of ideas is this repetitive, parasitic consumer notion. This mindless, all-devouring essence that, if you look at billboards, if you listen to advertisements, you feel it coming through all of the output. It has become so ingrained into everybody that it's like the highway along which everyone builds their little individual consuming units, which is their own setup. And it's not by any means impossible to move in magical ways. It's not. I still do it. I do it quietly, but I still do it. And many other people still do it as well. And actually, if you have managed to pull yourself from the morass that is the available motions and movements to you, if you've pulled yourself out of the definition of that and you look outside the edges of it, you will find that if you move quietly, you still are free to do anything. You're still not... All of the clamps are mental. They govern your mental. They don't govern anything else. They don't govern physical action unless you're actually physically harming somebody. Or unless you're dipping into, a fat cat's pot or stash of gold. If you do that, then you're going to pop on somebody's radar and, there may be some issues coming your way. Otherwise, you're free to do anything. Groups are still hard to manifest and manage, and it's difficult to have a group that doesn't implode. And that's not necessarily because they're getting infiltrated or specifically attacked. It's not necessarily because of that. It's because the mindset and maturity level of even a lot of the awake community is still not very good. I wish it was. It's not. And a lot of people have frail mindsets. They have frail minds because of the severity of the clamping that happens here. It's very severe. It's not a joke. If you've made it through this to this point and you still have a few mental shards intact, then you're quite powerful just because you've made it so far. You may not realize it, but you have to be able to understand the depth of the push that has been up against us for a really long time here in this place. So you can be proud of yourself if you've retained some mental acumen, right? Anywho, that's all for now. Peace!